Aloha, you're watching F5 On Demand. I'm Technical Marketing Manager Peter Silva. We're here at the MGM Grand in Vegas for the IBM Pulse 2013 conference. If you're at the show or in booth E508, please come by and visit us. And once again, it's an all Nojan week here at the Pulse 2013 conference. I got Nojan Moshiri, he's our solutions architect handling our IBM partnership. Thanks again for joining me, Nojan.
Thank you for doing this, Peter.
It's fun for me, at least.
Good.
And today we're going to be talking Maximo. And so I thought it'd be cool to get a little insight as to what Maximo does, what it's all about, and also how our BIG-IP Access Policy Manager is able to offer single sign-on for those end users. Because one of the things on the sign, and a question we actually got yesterday or the day before was double Maximo, run speed, deliver secure mobile access with single sign-on. And like, how do we do that? What do we do? And so I thought, let's answer the questions on our board.
Excellent.
All right, so we got our rig here, which is kind of cool. So first, tell us a little bit about Maximo. What is it used for? What type of industries? Like, how do people deploy Maximo?
So Maximo is an asset management system. It's used for both tracking assets, but it's also used for all the things that go with a life cycle of the asset that you're tracking. So if you can imagine, you're on an oil rig, you've got widget X that breaks, you're going to need to open a service ticket, you're going to need the service manual for that widget, you're going to need to handle the shipping and handling of all that. So it's really assets and the life cycle of assets. And it's used in oil and gas, it's used in federal space, it's used in transportation.
I also understand a lot of municipalities use it for the salt and the way the salt consumption when it snows, since there's a lot of storms going around right now, clearing off the roads with the salt goes down in those big drum things, and it's the Maximo software that alerts those people that we need to replenish the salt.
Yeah, I mean, what I tell people is you've probably interacted with a system that Maximo has tracked today many times, and you just it's one of those back-end systems that runs everything. So in this scenario, we're talking about oil and gas. We've got users that are located in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico or up in Alaska or anywhere, right? And they're connecting via satellite link. So how do we accelerate that? We've documented all that in our deployment guide, but today, let's talk a little bit about iApps, and then we'll talk about single sign-on, like you said, as well.
Let's take a look.
All right. So, one thing that we've done in our Maximo deployment, and users that are familiar with F5 and IBM understand, we've had a deployment guide that shows you step-by-step how to get those accelerated speeds and everything that goes along with it. Now, that deployment guide is 5 to 6 pages. Now, we've condensed that down to a one-page iApp that you import into BIG-IP, and it basically walks you through the steps of how to do that. So that iApp is located in DevCentral, which is where I am now.
And iApps came out in version 11 of the BIG-IP software and essentially allows individuals, I oftentimes kind of describe it in a way that it sort of builds upon the application security or application deployment templates in version 10, which allows people to essentially fill in the blanks, click next, finish, and then all of the virtual servers, iRules, pools, all the other pieces of the BIG-IP gets created magically.
Yes. One of the nice things, that's exactly right. One of the nice things about iApps versus templates in version 10 is that we can deploy them out of cycle. We don't need a new release of BIG-IP. So I wrote this iApp, tested it, it's up on DevCentral, you can just go there and download it, and you don't have to wait for a new release of BIG-IP. After it's downloaded, it's just a matter of importing it into the iApp tab. So you'll see iApp templates, you hit the import button, and boom, you've got the iApp right in your BIG-IP.
And if somebody, it's fully customizable, so you might have written this or an organization may have created their iApp for their specific industry or infrastructure and want to share it, they put it out on DevCentral. Another organization in the same or different industry can download that iApp and then tweak it to their specifications, that agility of the iApps.
That's right. It's fully editable online here. It uses Tickle, and for the presentation layer, our own language. Very easy to learn and use for the most part if you're editing somebody else's work to begin with.
And so you hit the templates, you clicked on the Maximo iApp template, which then brought us to this screen. And again, it's, the fill in the blanks, right?
Yeah, fill in the blanks. Do your Maximo servers have a route back to the BIG-IP? This sets some routing parameters down to SSL. Are we offloading SSL? Are we not? This sets the appropriate headers. You import your certificates. And the feature that I really like is down here on the WAN side. If I had Web Accelerator provisioned on this box, actually, it would walk me through the WAN acceleration. Cool. So you can see there's about a dozen questions that I run through, and we take a 5 or 6 page deployment guide, hit finished, boom. We have a fully working Maximo environment. This has been tested for version 7, release 1, and we'll surely put out an upgrade for version 7.5 as well.
Cool.
Yeah, neat stuff. One of the things that I really like about iApps is it takes the mistake potential out of doing this by hand. You've got a number of big IPs, you're trying to put this on 10, 12, 14 big IPs, you're going to make a mistake somewhere. When you use an iApp, it's all going to be done. You're not going to miss a step, you're not going to have fatigue, while you're going through and doing all this stuff by hand. So the other thing that I really like about it, and this is a point I've got to give you credit for, we talk about accelerating the end user experience. That's what this does. The iApp is accelerating the administrator's experience. So instead of going through and taking a couple of hours to run through a deployment guide, if you have all your questions pre-filled out, you can fill this out in a matter of minutes.
And you also may not necessarily have to be a Maximo expert either.
Exactly.
Where you get your big IP and it'll put the optimal settings in for you without you having to be like, oh my God, I played with it once. How do I do this?
Yes, and while we're talking iApp Love Fest here, the other thing that is really great, once you set this up, these are fully reentrant. So you can go back and tweak any of the settings if you decide to make a change. You're adding a pool member, you'd like to do something different. You can manage the entire setup here. And as you can see, after I ran that iApp, you see all of the iRules, the profiles. These are all the objects that were created. So if you were following the deployment guide, you would be going through steps for each one of these things. It was done in one single step. And now you can take a look at a map and in one place see everything that makes up your Maximo deployment. Very powerful.
And if you click on, say, the HTTPS virtual of the Maximo test.
Yeah, takes you right to the virtual. You can do the full management directly from that reconfiguration screen.
So we've now deployed or gotten Maximo set up on the big IP. How do we then tie that to, say, single sign-on for the end user?
Yeah, so single sign-on, again, what we're trying to do here is make the end user experience better. So the request that we had from customers is that if they have a number of Maximo servers, one of them goes down. In a lot of environments, they don't have sessions stored in the database. So you're tied to a Maximo server as a user, you're doing your work, that server goes away. Now you have to log in again. We've taken that out. And we also, as an added benefit, provide remote access as well if that's what the user wants. So all of that via our Access Policy Manager. And the thing that I wanted to show today is the Visual Policy Editor. So I've created a Maximo policy. This is the Access Policy tab that shows up when you have Access Policy Manager licensed. And I'm going to jump in and just edit this policy here. This pulls up our Visual Policy Editor. And to set up single sign-on, again, documented in the deployment guide, but very straightforward. We set up a logon page. And you'll see as we build the policy why this is called the Visual Policy Editor. It's all visual. You're going to have a username, a password. This is all customizable. The look and feel, the CSS, everything can be customized. We're then going to add a single sign-on credential mapping. This is going to tell APM to map the username and password automatically for the user. So the user signs on once to our login page. We securely store the username and password, and should it need to be represented, we represent it. if it needs to be revoked, if the user, all of that identity management can be done directly from here. We can do that.
And so in that instance, if that server that their sticky session persistence to, or they're logged on to, that server goes down, LTM swings them off to another server because APM is already holding their credentials. It's not the relog on and re-click to where I was and what did I finish doing, and you're right back where you needed to be.
That's exactly right. And to make it clear, this is really a simplified version of this. I'm going to change the last step to be an allow. But the thing that we would do here, and the thing that I'm obviously leaving out, is the authentication. So we can auth against your existing Active Directory. We can do an LDAP auth radius.
We're here.
Yeah. So you may be an AD environment. We'll do an AD auth. You're going to have your AD server predefined. I don't here at this point. Do all of that. Hit save. We're good. So if they're a failure in AD auth, they're denied. If it's successful, they're allowed in.
And the other cool thing about the VPE, if you want to, real quick, is it shows those particular areas. Like it doesn't BIG-IP, you might have missed a field, mixed up something, it'll bright red, or the alert, you got to fill this in, make it easier for the administrator. And then in this instance, and it's kind of cool, you didn't have it set up to show this, it has a little asterisk there to show that there's additional pieces that need to be taken care of before that's fully functional.
That's it, exactly. Yeah, and the one thing I'll say for all my new APM users out there, this apply access policy button is your friend when you're testing this out. If you forget to hit that, this is not going to be applied until you've hit apply. But that's really it. You set up your visual policy, and again, very customizable. On the fallback, for example, I can put in a message box that says, I'm sorry, you did not enter the right password, try again. We can do a full policy on there that says, you get so many tries, all of that sort of good stuff.
And then how do we then get to the ultimate resource?
So the allow it's mapped back on the access policy end. So we would have rules here, what we refer to as layer 7 ACLs. They're application ACLs that these get tied to. So we allow access to that end resource that's defined there.
Great stuff. So much easier for, I was telling Nojan earlier as we were talking, prepping for this, that a lot of times I like to talk about not only how it benefits an organization and the administrator and all that sort of fun stuff, but also the end user, all the way down. My mom back in Rhode Island, although she might not be using Maximo, but in those instances, we all become internet citizens clicking around at some point, and it really should be that whole end-to-end benefit rather than just one side or the other side.
That's it.
Cool stuff. So there you have it, a little bit about the BIG-IP Access Policy Manager and single sign-on and deploying Maximo to then actually answer the question of doubling Maximo run speeds and delivering secure mobile access with single sign-on.
Excellent.
Excellent job, Nojan. Thank again.
You.
Great stuff.
Mahalo.
Mahalo and shakas, yeah? All right, so for Nojan, and I got Janice behind the lens. Thank you, Janice. I'm Peter, reporting from Vegas, and we're with F5 Networks. Thanks for watching.